So good afternoon, brothers. So
Afternoon.
we've come to the last chapter of the Sermon of the Mount, which is the seventh chapter, which means with regards to the contents, we only have two sessions. And then on the after these two sessions, we will be talking about the Kingdom of Heaven, since it is not only for the Sermon of the Mount, but for the entire Gospel of Matthew. It is important if you allow me to expand further, even in the entire New Testament, the Kingdom of God or Kingdom of Heaven is an important theme. So the program of the study for this afternoon, you can see that we will discuss um, half of the seventh chapter. And so just a review. This is a structure of the Sermon of the Mount from 5 to 7, plotted by Jack Dean Kingsbury in his journal article with the title noted here. So he drew that the first, of course, uh, to include verse 1 and 2, 3 until 16 is on those who practice the greater righteousness. The next section is practicing the greater righteousness toward the neighbor, 5:17. On practicing the greater righteousness before God, and then practicing greater righteousness in other areas of life. That includes our a part of our discussion for this afternoon. And the last would be conclusion, injunction. If you notice, Jack or Kingsbury's outline is divided into 5. No, again, perhaps he was intending to use the number 5, no, to as an allusion to the 5 books of Moses. Okay. Now about chapter 7, I borrowed from Bob Gundry's a survey of the New Testament, teaching of Jesus the sage. So this is the second part, because his outline begins with the a portion of chapter 6. So against judging, and then exhortations to obedience in heedlessness of antinomian false prophets. And then a transitional formula. Notice that this 7:28 to 29 is the transitional formula before going back to the narrative section in chapter 8 in Matthew. This is how Hans Betz provided us with an outline of chapter 7. So the first half is conduct of daily life, and then on the second half is eschatological warnings. So we can see on judging, profaning the holy, giving and receiving, and then the golden rule. And we will be talking about the second half next meeting, the eschatological warnings, 2 ways, 2 gates. And if you look at it, it is composed in a different way, but reminds us of the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5. And the other side is the sins of the flesh, or the activities of the flesh. And so on judging others, welcome for our first segment of 4 segments, not today. Yes, we also welcome Pastor Schling. Thank you for joining us. So judging others, according to Charles Quarles, do not judge so that you won't be judged. No? And you can see that even in the social media, though this is very strong. People are throwing it. I don't know about the social media in India right now, no, Pastor Cherin. But in the Philippine setting,
Same, sir.
it
Same.
is also the
Yeah,
same.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. No? So as this is Charles Quarles' observation from the Christians or just people, you know, uh, throwing bad comments at no, at each other, no. So most quoted verse they are also among the most misunderstood. Scott McKnight, a meme of our culture today is that Christians are judgmental, and I'm compelled to agree, no, because uh, not 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 only during my past lifetime as a early minister, no, even today, no, sometimes this uh, complexity, no, comes out, no, the side of the bad that, or what we call the old has gone, no, but is old is resurrected. So two recent studies have revealed that many don't like the church or Christians because they perceive them as judgmental. So about this particular segment, this is the outline from Charles Tarbert, Unit 1. So the second unit will be discussed later. So 1 to 5 deals with judging as condemnation of one another by one who has not judged him or herself. It consists of 3 parts. So what are we not to do? So we are not to condemn. Condemn is pronouncing a judgment, and sometimes that goes with the um, adage which says, "Do not judge a book by its cover." Do not go into rush into conclusions, no. And we really need to understand the dynamics or the sometimes experiences and what else? Occasions, no, that led a person to make such a decision. No? And then I have a couple of examples in my mind, but perhaps we could talk about that later. So what God will do. So we are not to judge because judgment belongs to God. No, with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And that is actually a fearful verse, no? Fearful verse because uh, especially for us who are familiar with with scriptures, no, that there is already a warning, but later on as we pronounce a judgment to someone, no, later on there is a sort of uh, karma, if you would agree. Karma or just a return of fortunes, no, which brings us to our knees, no, and we realize that we made a mistake. And then so what are we? Yeah, thank you rin Pastor Lito for joining us, no. So what we are to do, reprove oneself, meaning we find fault, no, in ourselves, then one will be able to reprove others. But of course, I remember also James chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken. It says, a verse says that we who are spiritual should restore a person gently. So there is gentleness, no? And there is a intention, no, to restore a person. So not leave a person a sinning believer, for example, in to remain in the same state. And so I did a survey, no, the word judge appears in the Sermon of the Mount in these two texts, 552 and 7:1. The word judges in its personified form, no, we can see 12:27, and then the participle judging in 19:28. But the word judgment appears many times, no? 5:21, 22:7:2, 10:15, etc. Which means if you are into biblical theology, you can create a paper, no, about the understanding of judgment within the Gospel of Matthew. I know that will take a lot of energy and research to do that, but I think it would be very noble to write a paper on this one. But I know we are very limited with the time that we have And then from Halot, Halot stands for Hebrew, Aramaic, and Lexicon of the Old Testament. Okay. And so there is a Ugaritic background. Ugaritic, it is an ancient language. It's an ancient Canaanite language, which is very close to Hebrew. It's like a cousin. The Ugaritic, the verb tapat, tapat means to control, rule, and to make correct. So notice that it is not just about ruling. It is about seemingly the person in charge is standing towards a just society. Sa Filipino, we have matuwid, right? Matuwid, meaning it is straight. For cherry, it means it's straight. Baloktot is curved, it's not straight. So the concept of katarungan is actually tarong is Cebuano meaning wisdom, the application of wisdom, applying what is right into your decision making, like what is told in the Proverbs, And then there is also the Akkadian, Akkadian, the Shapat, which is very close to the Hebrew Shapat. Shapat is to issue orders, exercise authority, and then the Hebrew, the office of being a judge, governorship. The verb or the activity is to pass judgment, verdict, penalty, or threat. So still within the Sermon of the Mount, you can see this text: you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. Let's say to you that everyone is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. You can see here that the Beatitudes, in the words of Jesus, is really not against the concept of a ruling court. It's not against in the concept of a ruling court. What's the problem here is making a judgment towards a person that is not very clear. The person has not explored all the options. What led to the person make or do such activities. And then 552B, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard and you'll be put in prison. And then the verse that we have today, judge not that you might not be judged. For the measurement, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use. I remember, I just forgot what verse was that. Yung give and it shall be given to you, di ba? There is a measurement being told there, that the measure that was used, that you use will be used towards you. And there is this seeming idea. And I think that was about anger, anger or a dispute going on. Now Talbert said, verse 2, God, what God will do, judge the condemner with the same judgment the condemner has exercised. This was a common Jewish sentiment. Compare Romans 2:1 and then 3. In passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself because you, the judge, are doing the very same things. So Jesus is saying something that is not new to the people. It is already like a what you call common proverb, So these are examples, sa Midrash Sotak, with the measure with which a person measures, he will be measured by God. Mekilta, which is also another sort of Midrash, on Exodus 13. This is to teach you that with the measure with which a man measures, God measure to him. Sifrei or Numbers, according to the measure with which a man measures, God measured to him. Very similar to the Mikiltown Exodus. Baba Rosh. Baba Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Abin, so R means Arabi. Rabbi Abin said, he who calls down divine judgment on his neighbor is himself punished first for his own sins. So it's really, even in Jewish, no, even within Second Temple Judaism, the Jews were aware, no, that there is a problem, no, or a threat when a person makes a judgment towards another. Genesis Rava 9:11, Rabbi Simeon said to why is it Rabbi Simeon by Abba? So, perhaps these are two different rabbi, no? Rabbi, they have the same name. All measures have ceased, yet the rule of measure for measure has not ceased. No? Rabbi Huna said in Rabbi Jose's name, from the very beginning of the world's creation, the Holy One, blessed be He, for so that with the measure a man measures, with it they will measure to him. So it's really, I do not know about you. When I was crafting this lesson, it appears very scary. It appears very scary. Yung I mean, scary in the sense that if you make a judgment, no, that God is really watching, and in a way, what if no there will be retribution, no, and in the case of the one who makes a judgment, no. Targum on Isaiah 27:8. So a Targum is post-Christian version of the Bible in Aramaic. Okay, so if we have a Greek, or if we have a Greek version of the Old Testament, which is the Septuagint, the Targum is an Aramaic version. No. Hello, Siganda. Hello, good afternoon. No, Tito is here. Yan, Tito. Yan, sige. So in the measure you were measuring with, they will measure you. And then the Palestinian Targum on Genesis 38:26, which means this is a different dialect of Aramaic, no? With the same measure by which a person measures on earth, he is measured in heaven. Now on Carson, the harping critical attitude, which is judgmental, may become so poisonous that men with spiritual stature, personal integrity, and useful service are all vastly superior to my own, somehow emerge as spiritual babies. Now that is when Carson, no, so his seniors, no, or his superiors, no, pronouncing a judgment. It's like for him, he described it as childish, no. Perhaps some small deficiency or inconsistency in their lives has, in my view, utterly vitiated their stature. So it's like perhaps there is the sense of stubbornness, no, on the part, no, and this is really both a reminder and warning for us, no. What if we also become stubborn and become judgmental, no? If in Matthew 6, the love of money and distrustful anxiety ruin Christian character, in Matthew 7, the same result is achieved, no, by this is scurrilous sort. I hope I got the pronunciation right now. Scurrilous sort of zeal. Elsewhere, the Apostle Paul is prepared to hand over a certain promiscuous man. Remember, no, the immoral believer in 1 Corinthians 5:5, demanding that his local church discipline him. Such discipline requires judgment. And there is in the later verses in chapter 5, Paul said, we are to judge those who are inside, no? Because judge will judge those who are outside, no? So, and then in Galatians 1, Paul calls down on anathema on all who preach some version of the gospel other than the true gospel which Paul himself preaches. Still in Philippians 3, he uses strong language to warn his readers against certain false teachers. Watch out for those dogs, those men who do evil, those mutilators of the flesh. So the context must determine the precise shade of meaning. What does judge not, so you will not be judged mean? No? The context here argues that the verse means do not be judgmental. We should not have an attitude that is judgmental, and of course we really know why, no, because it is detrimental to character, and it fans the flame of no, yung disputes and enmities. So do not adopt a critical spirit, a condemning attitude. This is from S.A. Young in his journal within the book of Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels. We learn that the privilege of being children of the Heavenly Father does not mean that they may play God. Okay? That is to usurp the activities that God does, which is judging. God is the one who judges, and at the end time, Jesus will judge everyone and separate the righteous, those who are worthy for the eschatological kingdom and everlasting life, from those designated fit for everlasting punishment. The community of disciples is among those who will be judged, and not among those who may judge others. Remember, the conversation here is not for outsiders. It is a conversation between the master and his following disciples. Okay, instead of judging, one may help another to correct a fault. So this is really the secret of the text, no? Somehow it is something that we need to discover first. What is it? Gently correcting a brother or a sister. No? And it's difficult because it's like invading someone's privacy, no? When we do that, no? When we of course, we begin with a careful study of scriptures, and then from there we derive the ethical principles, and from there we talk about the ethical principles, and then we agree with one another how the ethical principles can be applied. Okay, how these ethical principles, but like in homiletics, what I'm trying to present is not new to you. It's just like leading a Bible study. Now, some rabbis, according to Carson, that God had two measures by which he assessed men, the measure of justice and the measure of mercy. It may be that Jesus in 7:2 is alluding to that point, no? The measure we use of these two will be applied to us. For example, suppose we come across a wretched liar, no? How do we look upon him? If we measure him by justice alone, we will be very critical and condemning, but that measure will then be turned on us, no? How truthful are we? It comes as a mirror, no? When we declare or pronounce judgment, it is really no, it's tawag mo dito, mysterious, no? Mysterious, because when you say something about judgment, no, we can feel that the Holy Spirit is saying something, no, to us, no, to us back about the very things that we said, di ba? So how often do we slant reports and stories to make a point or earn favor? And sometimes we call that white lies, no? White lies. There's no such thing as a white lie naman talaga, no? We cannot make a lie truth, no? Or a lie true, no? But again, yun nga. So, or again, perhaps we apply God's standard of justice to wealthy men. So this is what we call favoritism, no? We only choose the people to whom we are benefiting from, no? And and sometimes we make excuses for them, no? We stand as like a sort of lawyer, no? Trying to what you call justify, no? Again, going back to the word justice, no? But when we see someone who we're not benefiting from, who's, we can say, tama dito, people who are not really contributing anything. So we have a different way of judging these people. So in the end, no, when people would uh, um, accuse us of being double standard, no? Kaya nga it's difficult eh. We go back do sa text that sa Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers, di ba? It's really difficult to stand between, no? Two people having a dispute or violently attacking one another kasi we will be caught in the will be caught in the crossfire, no? If that's a proper way. It's really difficult, but I don't know. But how often have we been greedy? How often have we robbed others of value for money? For example, in our work, do we really want the standard of God's justice to be applied to ourselves in the way we are prone to apply it to others? So, I can see here two things, no? The first, we are prohibited from making a judgment, or we should not be judgmental. But the second is, we should watch our lives, no? We should take care of our lives. We should really um be very we should say for ministers extra careful, no, of what we are doing. And I remember in our New Testament survey when we talk about the book of James, part of that discussion is uh we should not show favoritism, no? Okay, a speck in one's eye. According to Dale Allison, the thought is very close to Romans 2:1. Therefore, you have no excuse, whoever you are, when you judge others. I think we already saw this a while ago. For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, are doing the very same things. So for Talbert, what we should do, reprove yourself first. And this is a good message for pastors, di ba? Kasi we ano yun eh, how difficult it is, no, to bring back our repute, no, when we pronounce a judgment, somehow we are dividing the house, no? Sometimes we are choosing sides. And for example, in a particular church, there are families attending in the church, di ba? And then suddenly there is a pronouncement, one of the family members made an error. And then, of course, people say blood is thicker than water, no? So of course family members would go in defense, no, of the person, not what he did, no, not what a person has done, no. And that again is very scary, no, for pastors, no. Of course, we pray the Lord forbid, no, that we be put in a position that we will dishonor his name, diba? So it is a rhetorical question. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Notice how Jesus is using the hyperbole, no? There is a speck, and then the other one, the one who makes a judgment, he has a log in his eye, no? Which is very big, no? Verse 4 is another rhetorical question. How can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye while the log is in your own eye? And then verse 5 is a concluding exhortation. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. And again, the fifth verse you can see here, the motive of the fifth verse is really not to judge or to destroy. Rather, it is really to help, to aid, to support, and to make a person better. Diba? Better morally or some other cases. And so now, Dale Allison uses the example of the scene of David. David and Bathsheba, no? One also recalls the story of David and his anger. Upon hearing Nathan's parable about the rich man who had taken the poor man's little ewe lamb, the king did not realize that what made him angry in another was his own fault. I do not need to rephrase the story, no? I expect everyone to know the story. And so David is incensed. He was very angry. Perhaps some of the force of his wrath arises from his own suppressed guilt. No? He was trying to, he was filled with shame, guilt before God because of what he did. And now he was looking for someone to vent his, vent his guilt and anger. Unfortunately, Nathan replies, "You are the man." Ah, well, imagine how would David look like, no? When he was rebuked by the prophet Nathan in that very occasion. Somehow, King David, incredibly blind, had been unconscious of the plank in his own eye as he fumed over the speck of sawdust in the rich farmer's eye. And so, being human beings unhappily possess an inbred proclivity to mix ignorance of themselves with arrogance toward others. Okay, I say again, a mixture of ignorance of themselves with arrogance toward others. So I think this is really unfair, no? This is really unfair. The call to recognize one's own faults is a commonplace of moral and religious traditions. And I say this not only for Christianity, no? Perhaps other religions also have their different ways, standards of expressing their their disapproval of someone's behavior. And from Carson's observation, no, depending if you agree with Carson, he said, ironically, the worst fault finder, whether in doctrinal or other realms, cannot be convinced of his fault. If the speck he has discovered in another person's eye is shown to be an illusion, or if the large log in his own eye is gently pointed out, he hunts and pecks until he finds another speck in his target's eye. No? This critic always looks for something else to criticize. He cannot feel he is sound unless he is constantly denouncing and condemning. I do not know how you react to this, no? But when I was doing my review nga, I think or I agree, no, that Carson here is makes sense, no? Makes sense. Now, we see here the flip side of the posture of condemnation is love. Suddenly Scott McKnight, no, changes the or rotates, no, rotates the position, no, between a judgmental person and on the other side is a person that shows love, humility, mercy, and forgiveness, no. And then in other words, a Jesus Creed driven disciple does not sit in judgment but acts with mercy towards others. We remember John Wesley said this well. The judging that Jesus condemns here is thinking about another person in a way that is contrary to love. Which is why we can say that when Jesus was teaching something about love, he tried to speak about it from the opposite, which is having a judgmental, critical attitude towards our brothers and sisters. So in Israel's history, there were judges who unfolded into kings and justices. But in the kingdom of God, God alone is judge. Human judges will not be needed because kingdom citizens live under the Messiah King and do the will of God. And so that is, of course, when we think of Christians offending other Christians, this is also comes as both a warning and as a comfort, no? Warning in the sense, if you did something wrong to your brother and sister, then expect the judgment coming from God. But if you are, if you have been mistreated, no? If you have been offended, if you have been lied upon, no? There is always the assurance, no? The assurance, since God is just, God is a God of justice, He will always ano, no, um, repay, no, everyone for what people have done, no, even in this world, no. But of course, instead of a society marked by condemnation, they are to form a society marked by humility, love for neighbor and enemy, and of course, mutual reconciliation. Therefore, his people must reflect God's character by living justly and showing mercy. And again, I remember Micah 6:8, no? What does God require of you, O mortal, is to uh, walk, uh, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly before your God. Uh, So it goes back to the covenantal messages of the prophets, di ba? And so because they are conscious of their own shortcomings and rebellion, they cannot but be profoundly grateful for mercy they have experienced even while they strive for perfection and magnify holiness. This balanced perspective keeps them both from a judgmental spirit and from moral apathy. Hmm? Meron pa yata. I think sorry. And then by Levine, I think this is the last line. Now Jesus tells us disciples that they should take care both in the proclamations and in their allocations not to put themselves in danger, lest they will trample the good gifts underfoot, which goes to forward to verse 6. The disciples are to be generous and compassionate, but they are not to be stupid, according to Levine. Very strong language, but it does really make sense. Okay, time for discussion. Hello? Anything about judging, judgmental, judges? No?
Doc.
Si Kuya Gerald, nag-unmute na si Kuya Gerald. Pastor.
Yeah. Well, actually, clearly, from verses 1 to 1 to 5, that with Jesus Christ, when he was talking to the original audience, there is something that is going on like this. That's why he was addressing this. Because obviously, when he said, you hypocrite, sa verse 5, you hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye. This is a statement na it is certain that's happening to them, no. So um this is like addressing right away those who are basically just like what you said a while ago, na parang they are just looking at other people's fault, no, pero they don't mind about their own behavior. And so that's this is probably very to the pastors or even counselor, na biblical counselor, na whenever we are addressing something or even probably having a meeting with a counselee, we really have to to be mindful about our own status, no. Kaya siguro talagang it's important to have a complete details muna, background of our counselee, and we really praying to God with regards to our own status concerning the counselee's situation. But then this is actually being active, no? If it is not talking, if we're not talking about someone who's seeking our counsel, but we always have to be careful about our own Christian living, no? Again, being right with God, and really giving, para kang you always have to give the benefit of the doubt to the other person eh. Don't judge right away. Kasi parang it's of course no sa mga marites eh ano yan we always wanted to ano, 'di ba, to
Ah,
extend kahit na
pagkain nila
paulit-ulit.
yun eh, yung Marites eh, yung ano eh, yung they would extend stories eh, pagkain nila yun.
Oo, 'di ba? Minsan kahit na ano na, it was already stated, pero you still would want to ano, parang gusto mong pigiin pa. You might miss something that is really juicy.
Or
Parang
to
you're
make it
telling,
controversial, no? Perhaps what
oo,
yung gusto sabihin ni Pastor Gerald, no?
oo. That's correct. Oo. So, ngayon eh, 'di ba? We tend to talagang parang para kang ano eh, para tong mga itches, para mga bacteria that we live on what's being scratched, eh, 'di ba? Parang ganun yun. Eh. What's being scratched, yung mga bacteria lives on that, yung mga fungus, 'di ba? So habang ini-scratch mo, lalong dumadami yung ano, yung mga bacteria. Yun, something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, thank you, man. Thank you, Pastor Gerald. Sunod, Pastor Sli, Cherry na siya, no? Ayun, Pastor Sli.
Ah,
Hello.
actually, Doc, I see it in a perspective na right there and then, God made a move to really correct them. But do it in a, ano eh, parang, do it in a manner na do offensive sa iba. Ano, offensive siguro to that person, specifically sa pinapatamaan niya. Pero sa, kunyari, hindi na naman sila ang kausap niya. Thinking of it na para bang lesson din, no? If ever if I would judge somebody else, then I should think of myself first. So parang ganun eh. So I look at it do sa conversation ako, kunyari, we are parang 3 person doon sa loob. Si Jesus, ikaw yung kinausap. Tapos ako yung nakikinig kay Jesus. And yeah, if that would be the case, if I will be in that situation, definitely, before I do that, talaga nag-teach muna siya. Ang dami nangyari doon sa scenario. And kung ako man yun, kasi ako, personally, medyo bold ako in terms of this one. If you have done something wrong, yeah, I'll gladly say it to you directly, no? I hate yung ano eh, I hate yung sa iba pang manggagaling, especially if you love that someone. Ang issue ko lang recently yung timing. Yun ang sabi pala sa akin. When I correct someone, the timing is not or ano ba to? Ano na hindi perfect yung timing ko, parang ganun. So, yeah. Siguro yun ang isa sa mga as a pastor. Kasi parang right now, ano, pastor, nasa transition nga na ako na personally, 'di ba, you are being a model right now. Hindi pa rin napaalis yung pagiging ano mo eh. Ano ba yung natawag doon? Ano bang word doon? Basta you say what you want to say. Parang ganun eh. No? So, siguro that's one. That's one na I'm challenge. Kaya minsan, sa tagal ko na nag-iisip, nagugulat na lang, my pastors are ano eh, parang asking eh, oh, you're silent today. What happened? What's on your mind? Ginagano na ako. Parang ako, in my side, I'm thinking eh, is this right? Will this edify or will I cause another topic to be discussed na naman and I am the parang yung promotor ganyan. So yeah, pero I get it, Doc. I do it na lang siguro with the mind na gaya ng inisip ng Lord, no? He's teaching at the same time hindi niya pinapabayaan na ganun lang ang mangyayari. So yeah, two sense of that, two face nung ginawa po ni Jesus.
Thank you. Paslito, may dagdag ka? Cherin. Yes, Cherin. Hello.
Oh, sir. When I read this verse, I am so reminded of how easy it is to point out the flaws in others or while ignoring my own shortcomings. So often I find myself quick to criticize or judge someone for their actions, but I rarely take the time to evaluate my own heart and the behavior. Like Pastor Slick said, he said earlier, uh, and also uh, this was challenged me to reflect inwardly before addressing the faults of others. And uh, if we love a person, we love a person, or dealing with such a person, if we a sinful person, if we are stuck in the sinful nature, we should approach him by without judging, uh, before addressing someone else sin. So um, what I do is, I must take time to reflect on my own life. So Jesus is teaching in Matthew chapter 7. It reminds me that I need to confront my own weakness before helping others. So it is my takeaway from this, sir. So thank
Yes,
you.
yeah. Thank you very much, Pastor Cherry. Yes, Kuya Lito. Tito, yan. Ano po?
Okay, napakaganda talaga ng ating mga pinapag-aralan. Actually, sa church nangyayari kasi yan eh. Minsan kapag merong una nagsumbong sa atin na ganun yung ginawa sa akin ng ating kapatid, na ganun. Minsan tayo nagiging judgmental at sumasayad agad din tayo doon sa nagsumbong. Alam niyo po, minsan yung una nagsusumbong, hindi niya sinasabi yung buong katotohanan. Kung ano lang yung papabor sa kanya, ay yun lang yung babanggitin niya. Sa church po, maraming nagsasabi sa akin ng gano'n. Ang ginagawa ko po, pinaghaharap ko silang dalawa. Hindi agad ako nag-judge dahil katulad ng kalimitan na nangyayari kung sino na yung una nag-marites, yun ang minsan kinakampihan eh. Ganun na rin na magiging tingin mo doon sa pinagsumbungan. Hindi ka galit, magagalit ka na rin. Bilang tayo mga pastor at nangunguna sa church, dapat pagharapin natin sila. I-validate natin sa kanila, totoo ba to? Tama ba ito? Totoo ba? At magugulat tayo. Magugulat tayo. Hindi kumpleto yung binanggit niya. At lalabas doon yung buong katotohanan. May iwasan tuloy tayo na mag-judge or mag-reprimand sa kanya. Pastor, tawag dito, ako ay laging pinaalalahanan. Sabi ko, sariwang-sariwa lang siguro, nakaraan lang, yung mga ilang, 2 buwan lang din. Sabi ko, ito, umaamin ka naman doon sa isinusumbong sa'yo. Hindi kasi lang pinagharap, pero separately, kinausap ko sila. Sabi ko, ito ginagawa ko, hindi para nagmamataas ako sa'yo, pare-parehas lang din tayo. Kasi baka isang araw naman, na ako ay very harsh sa'yo, ay baka gawin ko rin naman yung mga bagay na yon. Sabi ako, may kapakumbabaan na umaharap sa'yo, na
Hello.
yung sa tao na ginawan mo ng mali, maibalik ulit yung inyong pagiging magkapatid, yung pagsasama, yung ganun ba? Yung friendship ulit ninyo.
Yes po.
Doon ako confront. Tinitingnan ko yung aking sarili. Baka isang araw, ito namang aking pinapayo or the way kung paano ko siya nire-reprimand ay parang meron bang pagmamalaki.
Opo.
Ganun. Kasi nakalagay doon, ignorance of oneself, arrogance toward other. Dapat lagi natin titignan yung ating sarili. Sabi ko nga sa church, sa pastor, kami hindi naman kami Superman. Katulad din namin kayo. Actually, binabanggit ko sa pulpit yun eh. Binibigyan ko kayo ng pahintulot o karapatan sa akin kapag kayo may nakita na hindi ko magandang ginagawa, i-approach niyo ako. Tatanawin kong napakalaking utang na loob sa inyo yung gagawin ninyo. Dahil alam ko, mahal ninyo ako, kaya nyo ako sinasabihan ng mga bagay na yan. Directly, pastor, tinasabi ko po yan sa pulpito. Pare-parehas lang din tayo. Sa katunayan, napakalaki na aming sasagutin sa harap ng Panginoon na kami napagkatiwalaan dito sa iglesia na ipinanganak sa puso ng ating Diyos. Lagi kong binabanggit yan. Kaya naiiwasan, pastor, yung pagiging harsh sa pagtitreat doon sa mga kapatid. Alam natin